Hello friends, the life story of Steve Jobs. From an adopted child to a man who changed the world. In 1955, in the city of San Francisco, a baby boy was born. But his story did not begin like most. Shortly after his birth, he was given up for adoption and raised by a modest, hard-working family. This early moment, being chosen yet separated, quietly shaped something deep inside him. His name was Steve Jobs. From a young age, Steve didn't behave like other children. He was intensely curious, sometimes to the point of frustration for those around him. He didn't just use things. He wanted to understand them. He would take apart radios, gadgets, anything he could get his hands on, just to see how they worked. And sometimes he couldn't put them back together. But that didn't stop him. If anything, it pushed him further. His father, who worked with his hands, taught him an important principle. Craftsmanship matters. Even the parts no one sees should be built with care. That idea stayed with Steve for the rest of his life. As a teenager, Steve met someone who would become one of the most important people in his journey, Steve Wozniak. Wozniak was a brilliant engineer, deeply passionate about electronics. Where Wozniak saw circuits and code, Steve saw possibility. Together, they formed a powerful combination, technical genius and visionary thinking. But Steve's path was never traditional. He enrolled in college, but quickly felt out of place. The structure, the required classes, it all felt limiting. So he made a bold decision. He dropped out, not because he didn't want to learn, but because he wanted to learn differently. He continued attending classes that interested him, especially one that seemed completely unrelated to his future: calligraphy. At the time, it looked like a random choice. But years later, that class would influence the beautiful typography of personal computers, changing how the digital world looks and feels. After drifting for a while, exploring ideas, traveling, even seeking spiritual meaning, Steve returned with a clearer sense of direction. Then came the turning point. In a small garage with limited resources, but unlimited belief, Steve and Wozniak founded Apple. They weren't backed by big investors. They didn't have a clear roadmap. What they had was a vision to make computers simple, accessible, and personal. Their early creations were rough, but promising. Then came the Apple II, a product that began to capture attention. Slowly but surely, the company started to grow. But success brought pressure. As Apple expanded, disagreements began to surface. Steve was known for being intense, demanding, and sometimes difficult. He pushed people hard, not because he wanted to be harsh, but because he believed greatness required it. Then, something unexpected happened. In 1985, Steve Jobs was forced out of Apple, the very company he had co-founded. Imagine building something from nothing, and then being told you no longer belong there. For many, that would have been the end. For Steve, it was the beginning of a new chapter. Instead of giving up, he started again. He founded a new company called Next, focused on building powerful computers for education and business. Around the same time, he made a risky investment in a small graphics division that would later become Pixar. At Pixar, something magical happened. The company went on to create groundbreaking animated films, including Toy Story, the first fully computer-animated feature film. It wasn't just a technical achievement, it was emotional, human, and revolutionary. Steve had once again found himself at the intersection of technology and art. Meanwhile, Apple was struggling. Without Steve's vision, the company lost its direction. Products became confusing. Innovation slowed. Eventually, Apple made a surprising move. They acquired Next. And with that decision, Steve Jobs returned. But he didn't come back as the same person. He had learned, he had matured, and now he was ready to rebuild. When Steve reassumed leadership, he made bold and immediate changes. He simplified Apple's product line, cutting unnecessary projects and focusing only on what truly mattered. Then, one by one, he introduced products that would redefine entire industries. The iMac, colorful, simple, inviting. The iPod, putting 1,000 songs in your pocket. The iPhone, reimagining what a phone could be. The iPad, creating a new category between phone and computer. These weren't just devices. They were experiences. Steve believed in simplicity. He believed that technology should feel intuitive, almost invisible. He cared deeply about design, about the way something feels in your hand, about the emotion it creates. He once said that people don't just buy products, they buy what those products represent. And Apple, under his leadership, represented creativity, individuality, and thinking differently. But behind the success, there was a quiet battle. Steve was diagnosed with a serious illness.
Even as his health declined, he continued to work, to present, to inspire. He stood on stages, thinner but determined, unveiling new ideas as if time itself was pushing him forward. He knew his time was limited, and perhaps that's what made his final years so powerful. In 2011, Steve Jobs passed away. The world paused, because this wasn't just the loss of a businessman. It was the loss of a storyteller, a dreamer, a man who believed that one person, driven enough, could leave a dent in the universe. Today, his legacy lives on. Every time you unlock a smartphone, every time you admire a clean design, every time technology feels simple instead of overwhelming, you are, in some way, experiencing his vision. But his story is not really about Apple. It's about curiosity, about failure, and what comes after it, about trusting your instincts, even when the path makes no sense. It's about a boy who once took things apart and grew up to rebuild the world in his own way.